give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire.
How you doing, everyone? Today we're going to continue our review of Tier 5 tanks. For those of you that are new to World of Tanks, just making your way into the game, trying to figure out where you want to go. And we're going to continue that review with the Tier 5 heavy tanks, specifically this machine right here, the KV-1. And this is a tank which I really think is pound for pound probably the most dominant Tier 5 machine in World of Tanks. And that probably makes some of you raise an eyebrow, because if you look at the statistics, it's really a middle of the road machine. But this is just one of those tanks where it is more than the sum of its stats or its parts, however you want to say it. And what we're going to do is we're going to dive into those stats right quick, do some comparisons to the other Tier 5 heavies so that we can see in what ways it's better and what ways it's worse. And then we're going to take a look at what those stats add up to and what that means for the machine. And then I'm going to show you some gameplay to demonstrate what I'm talking about. So diving right in here, we can see that the KV-1 has 640 hit points, which, believe it or not, is actually the lowest hit point total of all of the Tier 5 heavies. Really surprising considering it's a Russian tank. By way of comparison, the T1 and the VK have 660 hit points. Getting up to the higher end, both the Churchills have 700 hit points. Even the BDR, the French Tier 5 heavy, which Frankenbean likes to call the Badger, so from here on out I'll probably be calling it the Badger. Even that thing's got 650 hit points. So, kind of surprising, but it has the lowest hit point total of all the Tier 5 heavies. But do keep in mind that's almost 200 hit points more than a Tier 5 medium, and much more than the Tier 5 tank destroyers. So, not god-awful, just hey, bottom of the list in terms of Tier 5 heavies. Kind of surprising. In my configuration, the KV-1 weighs 49.6 tons, has a 500 horsepower engine with the top engine, giving it a top speed limit of 34 kilometers an hour, which is, again, it's middle of the road. It is not as fast as the T1. It is not as fast as the VK, both of which are 35 or a little bit upwards. It will keep pace with the T14 at 34 kilometers an hour, and it is actually faster than the Badger, which only reaches 30 kph, and certainly faster than the Churchills. We all know that the Churchills are slower than Christmas. So middle of the road in terms of speed. Now do note that it only has a 500 horsepower engine and almost a 50-ton machine, and what that means is it's not going to pick up speed very well, and it's going to struggle in turning. In point of fact, with a stock engine and stock suspension, you'll note that this tank will almost try, it doesn't turn very well at all. Instead of doing a smooth turn like so, it'll actually almost try to stop and neutral steer or pivot steer on you until you get the upgraded engine, upgraded suspension, and 100% crew, and probably some clutch braking on there. So that's kind of a funny little quirk of the tank. And speaking of maneuverability, if we look at the numbers here, we see that the KV-1 has a 24 degree per second turret traverse and a 20 degree per second hull traverse, which is flat out god awful. I mean, it is terrible. Even the VK German tanks, specifically heavy tanks known for being kind of ponderous, the VK has a turret traverse that's just as good as this, and this hull traverse is actually 22 degrees per second. Even the Churchills that we just talked about, which are so slow, have a 22 degree per second hull traverse, and their turrets traverse at 30 to 34 degrees per second. 34 definitely with the top turret on the British Churchill. Not sure for the premium Churchill right off the top of my head, but it's a pattern you're going to see repeated over and over. This thing has the worst turret and hull traverse of all of the tier 5 heavies, and it is the worst by far. It is truly a ponderous machine. Now if we look, actually we're going to skip armor, we're going to come back to that because that gets a little complicated. So let's go down to view range. The KV-1 has a 310 meter view range, which is the worst of the tier 5s, but not by much. By way of comparison, the Badger, the BDR, has a 320 meter view range. The T14, 330. The T1, 330. So it's bad, but it's not bad by much. The best view range you're ever going to get in a tier 5 heavy is in fact the VK, and that's only 360. So, you know, it's bad, but it ain't terrible. What is terrible is the signal range. 440 meters is, again, god awful, especially when you consider that the BDR and the VK both have a 710 meter signal range. This thing has one of the worst radios in the game, so keep that in mind as you're playing. Not only do you have bad view range, relatively speaking, but you have flat out awful signal range. Now the armor is where things get a little bit tricky. You see here that, just speaking in terms of frontal armor, the KV-1 has 75 millimeters of hull armor front and 110 millimeters of turret armor front, which is, it's not all that impressive, especially when you consider that the T1, for example, 83 millimeters of frontal hull armor, and off the top of my head I want to say it's 102 millimeters on the turret front. So it seems middle-ish of the road, certainly not as good as the Churchill. The Churchill has, as memory serves, 144 millimeters of frontal hull armor, and I want to say 102 on the turret. Let's pull it up and take a look right quick. Churchill right here, 101 with the stock turret and 177 hull front. But do remember that in order to get the best gun on the Churchill, you're going to have to fit the upgraded turret, which drops it down to 88 millimeters of turret front armor, and that's about where most of the tier 5 heavies will end up sitting, is right around 80 millimeters of turret front armor and somewhere around 60 to 80 millimeters of hull frontal armor. What makes this tank, well, obviously with the exception of the Churchills that are up at 140 and 177 respectively, as memory serves, but what makes this tank special is if we look at the rest of the armor. As you can see, the KV-1 has 75 millimeters of side armor, 70 millimeters of rear armor on the hull, and the turret is 110 millimeters all the way around. And that is something that none of the other tier 5 machines can match. It has armor everywhere, all the way around the tank, and that is a huge difference. Just ask any T1 or Churchill driver that's taken shots in the flank. Just to give you an example, if we look at the T1 with its pretty good frontal armor, 83 and 102 on the turret, look at the sides, 44 and 83. Those hull sides could almost be penetrated by a Lull tractor, a tier 1 German tank. Not so the KV-1. And what's really important to consider is the angling. Look at the front of the KV-1. Look at that slope right there. Frontally, if a shot hits that slope, and again, we're talking just tier 5. We're not, yes, the KV-1 can get into tier 7 matches, but we're not going to talk about T29 shooting at the front of a KV-1. We're comparing it to the other tier 5 heavies and tier 5 machines in general. A tier 5 gun that hits that part of the tank right there is almost no chance of penetrating. It's going to bounce. The only way you're going to penetrate this tank frontally is by aiming here at the machine gun port and here at the driver's slit. If you're a tier 5 tank, there's almost no other way you're going to penetrate this tank from the front unless it's by luck. You can also aim at the lower glacis down here. You want to try to shoot right in between the two shackles, the two tow hooks here. You can penetrate there as well. What you don't want to do though is have that round drift up and hit this slack right here. You have almost no chance in a tier 5 tank of penetrating that. Similarly, if you're aiming here, if your shot drifts up into that gun mantle, look at that gun mantle. You have almost no chance of penetrating it. So this tank has a lot of sloping working for it in its front armor. And more importantly, the side armor, like we talked about, plays a huge role in artificial sloping or angling. Because the side armor is every bit as thick as the front armor, that means that a smart player won't point his tank at you like this. He will angle this tank at 45 degrees almost exactly. And what that does is it creates an angle that maximizes the armor of the front and the sides, because the sides are the same thickness as the front. So going all the way to 45 degrees doesn't expose your side any more than your front. They're just as thick. And it creates a situation in which both your side and your front armor are in actuality somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know, 115, maybe even 120 millimeters thick. And it becomes damned if you do, damned if you don't. Where are you going to shoot? If you shoot at the sides, one, you got to get through 120 some millimeters because of the angle, and two, you got to get through the tracks. 9 times out of 10, the tracks will eat your shots. Of course, the other choice is to try to shoot at the front, but now you're looking at 120-ish, give or take, millimeters because of the angle, not counting all the sloping already built into the armor. It's a really awkward angle. So the odds of you penetrating it are slim to none, and no other tier 5 heavy can do that. T1 heavy, if it turns and tries to angle like that, is going to get blown away. Its side is going to get penetrated almost automatically. Even the Churchill, with its monstrous hull front armor, if it shows its side at all, its side's only, as memory serves, 63 millimeters thick, something like that. Let's take a look again. Yeah, 63 millimeters thick. Again, if it exposes its sides at all, it's in trouble. Not so the KV-1 at all, and that is what really makes this tank stand out. In addition, let's take a look at the guns right quick. Alright, so what I've done is I've pulled up the guns on all the other tier 5 machines so that we can compare them. We've got the non-premiums up top, the T1, the Churchill 1, the Badger, the VK, and then down here at the bottom we've got the T14, the Churchill 3, and then here's the KV-1 gun right here, the 85mm F30. And what you'll notice right away, 12 rounds per minute rate of fire. Pretty average. The only thing that's going to shoot more rounds for that is the lower caliber guns on the T1, the T14, and then the Churchill 3. So not bad, pretty competitive. 120 millimeters of penetration. It's kind of on the low end actually. Up to 157 here. For this used to be the Conish, now it's got this new strange name on the VK. 135, not so bad. That's the 90mm on the Badger. 145 for the Churchill 1's gun. So kind of low in terms of penetration. Obviously the premium tanks have garbage penetration, and actually the T1 is not much better at 128mm. Now where this gun shines is its alpha damage. 160 average damage, which beats everything except for the 90mm on the Badger. But remember, the Badger's only got a 6.32 rounds per minute rate of fire, whereas we got 12 in the KV-1. In terms of accuracy, 0.42, not so good. In fact, the only guns that we beat in terms of accuracy are the premiums. Got more accuracy than both of the premium tanks, and again the T1 just slightly better than the T1. Other than that, the other tier 5 heavies have more accurate guns, much more accurate in terms of the Churchill 1 and the VK with the what used to be the Conish. Aiming time of 2.9 seconds. Again, it's the worst aiming time out of the bunch, but 0.4 seconds, a half of a second almost worse than the BDR and the VK. And then again, these smaller caliber guns obviously have much better aiming time. So again, middle of the road gun, except in terms of rate of fire, where it's very competitive with most of the other tier 5 heavy tanks, bar the ones with the very small guns, and alpha damage, where we have the best alpha damage outside of the 90mm gun on the BDR. So what does all of this mean? Well, what this means is that The KV-1 is in fact a very well-rounded tank. It comes in the middle of the road with the exception of certain areas. First, maneuverability. You cannot allow yourself to be outmaneuvered in a KV-1. Yes, to some degree, the fact that you have excellent all-around armor will protect you a little bit, but the worst thing that you can have happen to you in this tank is to get circle strafed by, say, a Sherman or a T-34, because you just cannot get your gun and your tank around fast enough to deal with those kinds of threats. Generally speaking, you want to avoid the big open fields, open area engagements like that. One, for that very reason, because it gives medium tanks the room they need to build up the speed to circle strafe you. And two, remember, like we talked about, your view range is the worst of all the tier 5 heavies. So you're probably going to get seen first and get shot at by tanks that you can't even see in order to respond. On the flip side, though, on the good side, you do have excellent all-around armor. You can angle, and it is very easy to angle effectively in this tank. Much more so than the other heavy tanks, where if you're off even a fraction of a degree in your angling, you're going to get eaten alive. Not so this tank. It is very forgiving. And while you're not very maneuverable, you do have decent speed for a heavy tank. So you can shift in this tank, where some of the other heavy tier 5s will struggle to shift effectively, especially the Churchills. The Churchills, as we all know, cannot shift at all. So basically, what you want to do with the KV-1 is you want to stick to cities. You want to stick to closed-in areas where you have either terrain or buildings on your side to protect you, to prevent you from being flanked. You want to angle this tank. Even if you're not confident in your ability to angle, just turn it to the side just a little bit like this, and then pound away with that 85mm gun, where you're closer, where your aiming time isn't such a detriment, and where your alpha damage will really allow you to pound opposing tanks into the ground. Also keep in mind that if you stick to that kind of environment, there's going to be corners. The other tier 5 heavies, as we talked about, they rely more on DPM. They have a rate of fire that's either a little bit or a lot better than you, and they're relying on you being exposed so that they can keep pumping rounds into you. Where if you're in a city, you can come up to a corner, angle the tank as you come around that corner, pop out, take your shot. You're already angled. They're going to get 1, maybe 2 shots back at you as you back out, which are going to bounce because you're not coming straight this way with your turret pointed back at us. No, you're coming around the corner like this and then backing back out, and you will get impressive results in this tank. In my personal experience, the only losses I've had in this tank are when my team just sucked and I got surrounded and circle strafe like we were talking about, or when the opposing team just outmaneuvered us and I ended up winning my side of the engagement, but unfortunately the other flank lost and they capped us or finished off the majority of the team, and I just couldn't turn and get there fast enough. Those are the games that I tend to lose in the KV-1. But if I get my way, if I put this tank in the decisive point of the battle and the decisive place of the battle, then I tend to win with this tank, because it's a very forgiving machine, and as long as you do the basics and angle just a little bit, this tank will treat you better than any of the other tier 5 heavies. So enough sitting here talking over dry stats. Let's take a look at some gameplay and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So here we are on Angst in the KV-1. I'm in a platoon with Cav Scout. He's also in his KV-1. You can see that we're tiered very well, and Cav Scout and I talked about this game before it started, and we immediately decided, you know what, we're going straight down to the 2-3 line into the heart of the city. That's where most of the heavy tanks go. It's incumbent on us as the 2 KV-1s in this game on our team to go in there and win the city. So what you are going to see is Cav Scout and I immediately pushing straight south through the town in order to make contact with the enemy heavies and then crush them is the bottom line. It's the simple plan with this tank. Go in there, find the enemy heavies, and then beat them up. You see the team has already made contact with a Stug 3, which is taking hits, and a T-14, and that's who we want right there, is the T-14, one of their 3 heavy tanks, and we're racing south to try to get down there to him. Now here's where you normally end up in your firefight, and kind of where the battle stalls out right here as people fight over this street who's going to push. But the opposing team actually did not come this far north, and it looks like they're actually trying to go out more into the 4-5 line as you see them moving east. There's that VK. This Wolverine unfortunately didn't move fast enough. He gets a lucky shot into me, but Cav Scout and I eat him alive, and there's our first kill. Panzer 1 Charlie doesn't move fast enough, and I finish him off, and then Cav Scout finishes off that South 40, and we're already at 3 kills. Now I'm coming out. I want this VK 3001H. It's one of their 3 heavy tanks, and Cav Scout and I are on voice comms as usual, and he's covering my right while I engage this guy. I'm taking a look, making sure he's not in any danger, because I see the other heavy tank down there and I want to make sure Cav Scout's winning that engagement. And I've taken another hit, but I've got the better of this VK right now. I'm at 384, he's only at 217. He'll only take 2 more hits. And there you see, angled, we bounce his shot. I wanted to turn right and go towards him to get out of the alley, but I realized that that would unangle my armor, so that's why I stopped and pivot back to the left in case he was going to reload in time to get another shot. It would also bounce. And now we're pouncing on this T1 heavy, and there's the flank shots we talked about. And look at this. This is clearly not the most skilled T1 heavy driver in the world. He tries to get away, but I believe that was Cav Scout that tracked him with that shot, and then somebody else got the kill. But here's what I'm talking about. Look at Cav Scout and I have 6 kills between us, and the game's just now reaching the 12-minute mark. We have crushed their team, but what's the rest of our team doing? Why are they not moving to the flag? And now we've got to take these KV-1s and turn around and try to race back to the flag for a reset. There's a good third-person point of view moving clutch shot on that T-34 and try to reset this cap, and as you can see, there's just no way. The KV-1 is not fast enough. It's already hit 100%. There's no way I'm going to pen an AT2 from the front like this. And despite Cav Scout and I killing 7 tanks, almost half of the enemy team in 3 minutes, we lose the game because the opposing team outmaneuvered us with just a couple of medium tanks. And it's not like we committed our tanks to the wrong spot either. We killed all of their heavies and 4 more tanks beside. But here again, that's what I mean when I say the KV-1, you will take losses just because you can't maneuver, you can't get back fast enough. And that's probably true for any heavy tank, but especially the KV-1, I feel. We're not going to look at the results on this screen. Suffice it to say, I really feel like Cav Scout and I did our job. We just needed the team to do a little something else, because the KV-1 just can't be everywhere on the battlefield. It can only be in one place. It is not a Sherman, it is not a T-34. Let's take a look at another video. Now here we have Cav Scout and I again in a KV-1 platoon on Pearl River. This video is not one of my greatest games in the KV-1, but I wanted to show you this video because I think it does demonstrate just how dominant a well-played KV-1 can be, especially a platoon of KV-1s. Now, Cav Scout and I mean, we didn't even consider it. We immediately turn right and go north, which is when most of your heavy tanks go, and then push through, and then you either fight over the bridge or have the big fight there in the valley. And as we're moving out, look at the mini-map. It's right about now where Cav Scout and I are realizing, oh my god, there is no one up here with us. We are the only 2 tanks that came up here. And I'm telling Cav Scout, wait, stop. And he's like, yep, I see it. We're the only ones. I was like, yeah, and that's when we figured out, you know what? We can actually defend from right here. You stay there. I'm going to go to the far side. And if you're familiar with basic armor tactics at all, basically what we're doing is building an engagement area just to the east of us, kind of where I'm pointed right now, and we're setting up a crossfire pattern where I will, even though I'm on the left, I'm going to shoot the tanks on the right, and Cav Scout on my right is going to shoot the tanks on the left, which is really kind of awkward for the enemy to deal with. And if they try to push Cav Scout, then they expose their flank to me, and vice versa. If they try to push me, they're going to have to come down because I'll back out, as you see where I'm sitting, and they'll expose their flank to Cav Scout. And really, if we take a look at the external camera, it's just me, Cav Scout, and a Stug trying to hold this valley. So let's see what happens. Let's see if our little crossfire pattern engagement area will hold. Right about now, Cav Scout and I were talking. He said, do you think we should push? I haven't seen anybody yet. I was like, no, I don't really think we should push. I think there are bad things coming through that valley if we just give them a minute. And we've already lost a T1 and an M3 Lee. And there's first contact, a Panzer III-4. And here comes the KV-1. Really unfortunate. There was a good hit on the KV-1. Another good hit on the M7. Stu just hit that M7 hard. He hit the KV-1 when I hit him as well. That's not all my damage on the KV-1. Now see, this KV-1 driver is no idiot. He's staying hull down. He's only exposing his turret, which I'm going to struggle to penetrate. But I'm also angled, and you see he's struggling to penetrate me as well. That's what I wanted, the side of his turret right there in his cheek, away from the mantle. It's kind of flat and you can penetrate there. M7 is throwing in some cheeky shots from behind those bushes, and there's artillery. The Sexton hurt me. Now see, here's this T-34 trying to push to get through, but like we talked about, he ends up being exposed to me and the Cav Scout and to the Stug. M7 tries to push, he gets more of the same, and we back off because it's not the tanks that are hurting us, it's the Sextons that are just lobbing rounds. You see, their shots are bouncing, and unfortunately here's a new KV-1 rolling up to take his buddy's place, and that's really bad news for me. I was hoping that the other KV-1 would be over in Cav Scout's EA, and I wouldn't have to try to fight them both. What you see me doing here is repositioning, trying to get closer to this hill because those Sextons are killing me. Trying to get a shot into that hurt KV-1 to finish him off. Don't like the way I'm angled here. I'm really presenting a lot more of my flank than I want to. But when I stay well angled like I am, I don't have the room to move forward and back without getting pummeled by the Sextons. Now there's Cav Scout with his second kill. Really bad shot on that KV-1 there, but I was trying to just come out, take a shot, and get back before they could react. Still trying to finish off that maimed KV-1. Now I've gone to premium rounds. I'm just trying to get one into his weak spot there, but too late. They finished me off. Cav Scout's now up to 3 kills. And there you see that we held up pretty much their whole team. 2 KV-1s, an M7, a Panzer III-4, a T-34-85. We held them all while our team went around the other way and mangled them, and now we're up 9-7, and they still haven't gotten Cav Scout. And he just killed the first of their 2 KV-1s, bringing him up to 2 kills, and now he's working the second KV-1. It's really fortunate that that Stug came with us, because he did help a lot. And there Cav Scout finishes the second KV-1 for his 5th kill. And just look around. There's Cav Scout, there's me, there's the T-80, there's the Stug. And look at all the tanks that we killed. Both the KV-1s, there's the Matilda Black Prince, there's the Type T-34, there's the Panzer III-4 back there. I'm not sure where that M7 went. We either killed him or he ran away. But yeah, just goes to show what 2 well-positioned KV-1s can accomplish when you angle properly and choose where you fight rather than allowing the enemy, because that, like we saw in the previous video, that's what's going to kill you more often than anything else in the KV-1, is when you're caught in a bad position. That's what's going to kill you, that's what's going to cause you to lose games. Let's take a look at the results screen right quick. So there we are. Not a real great game for me. I bounced a lot of shots there at the end trying to take out those 2 KV-1s. It's got 16,296 credits, 557 experience points. Looking at the team score, I did manage to do 912 points of damage. Still not all that great. But look at Cav Scout, who had all those medium tanks in front of him. 1,974 points of damage with 5 kills, able to finish off both of those KV-1s. 1,159 base experience. And you can see that Cav Scout got the Balot's medal out of that. He got a Spartan medal out of that. And he got the steel wall. 20 shots fired, 17 direct hits, 14 penetrations. And look at that. That is what I'm talking about angling. He took 20 hits, only 7 of which penetrated, 13 bounced off. It is just, that is an amazing performance in the KV-1. And you have to give him all the credit in the world. I appreciate you making me look bad on my own channel. If we look at the detailed report, 14 shots fired, 9 hits. Like I said, 7 penetrations. We bounced 2 shots and a lot of them were misses, quick firing. Took 25 hits, 16 penetrations, but a lot of those, as you saw, did no damage. 2 splashes from Artie and then 9 bounces. Absorbed 3,815 points of damage before they finally dragged me down in that KV-1. It's just an amazing job, I thought, done by 2 KV-1s holding off the majority of the enemy team. Didn't make a lot of money, only brought home 2,488 credits because it did fire premium rounds there at the end, trying to penetrate the turret of that hurt KV-1 and at least finish him off before I got taken out. Unfortunately, didn't get that done. So all in all, I thought that was a really good demonstration of what you can do with a KV-1 if you just put a little thought into where you're going and plan it out one step ahead. Let's take a look at one more video. So here we are, platoon this time with Schwant. He's in his T-14. And this is a Tier 7 game. We've got an IS, a Tiger P, T-34-1, and a T-25/2 on the opposing team, as well as a GW Panther, and some Tier 6s. And then about middle of the road, you come into the Tier 5 tanks. So, could be worse, could also be a lot better. And right now, Schwant and I are trying to figure out where we want to go. He's thinking about going over to the Magic Forest, or at least to the hill to the south of it. And there you see me telling Schwant I don't like the Magic Forest, it scares me. What I'm concerned about is running into that IS and the Tiger P in the forest, and then there's no way we are going to get out of there. If we find them, we're going to get eaten alive. But, you know, your wingman goes that way, you can't leave him hanging, so I'm going to start moving east. And as you can see by chat, we're still trying to figure out where we want to go. I'm not really sold on this whole push east into the forest idea. And I was gonna go north into town, and then I saw this Tiger P. And I don't know what he's doing, but I don't think he has any idea that I'm here. So we're gonna send some blind shots out. Now we're gonna move before we get spotted. Don't really want to get into a head-to-head fight with that Tiger P. What I want to do is get over here behind this house so that the Tiger P can't shoot me. And I was gonna move either north into town or over into the forest, but the forest doesn't look like a good bet. And as you can see in chat, I'm telling Schwant, man, look out, that tiger is not happy with me. I'm putting shots here into his cupola and the side of his turret. And as you can see, those aren't premium rounds, those are standard AP rounds. I'm just aiming at the sides of his turret and the cupola. And there we get the kill on a Tiger P in a tier 5 heavy. So this gun can perform in tier 7 games as long as you know where to aim. Right now I'm backing up because I saw all the scary things in the forest and I really don't want to be over there when they come out. This was before we had voice chat running, so unfortunately I couldn't tell Schwant, hey, you need to pull back, man. Trying to kill this AMX-12 if the Panther will get out of the way. Unfortunately the Panther gets the kill. And what I'm trying to do is turn this pig around and move back west, but at this point I'm kind of afraid that it's too late, and if I try to go west now I'll get caught and shot in the back. You see Schwant diving in with his T-14, and I'm kind of loath to leave him over here by himself. Score's now 3-7. Can't really afford to lose any more tanks. I certainly can't afford to lose my wingman. So I'm going to go over here and back his play. That IS is hurt. If we can just kill him, we might stand a chance. You see there, Chad, I just told Schwant to die well. Because I was pretty sure that we were about to get our teeth kicked in. This Cromwell, I'm going to come over the ridge and try to get a shot into him. Might be able to finish him, but Artie gets him instead. Now, I know there's the ARL. I know that hurt IS is around here somewhere. You see me there telling Cav Scout, hey, make them come out to us. Let's not go down there and pick a fight with him. And if we can get them to come up this hill, they don't have the gun depression to shoot us. There's that IS. That's the other reason I wanted to make them come up, because I knew that IS was sneaking around down there somewhere. And I'm trying to find some spot on this ARL that I can pen. I've gone to premium rounds now. I'm trying to aim for the flat spots on the sides of his turret or his cupola. Managed to get another shot in, and then Schwant finishes him off. And now I'm going to just take the hit from the IS, and notice he didn't have the 122, and then I'm able to get the shot into his cupola and kill him. So there we go, killed the 2 tier 6 tanks and a tier 7 heavy, and managed to save this flank. And I tried to get Schwant out of the way so I could turn this tank around. A little bit of a goat rodeo going on there. The last thing I want to do now is drive out there into the water and get stuck, or have a couple of tanks drive up behind us. Now that A20 is the last tank that they have, so if we can just get out of here, then we may actually be able to turn this game around. I'm trying to get back here and get spun around and get over on this A20. Unfortunately, here again, it doesn't turn and it doesn't go up hills well. I can't get it turned around and get up in time to save our artillery from that A20. You see Schwant pushing north through the forest. He's going artillery hunting. And I'm thinking about firing a blind shot. There he is. I saw the tree fall. So he hasn't gone far. Sixth sense hasn't gone off yet, so he hasn't seen me. Gotta be around here somewhere. You see me telling Schwant there to go get that artillery. What I'm concerned about is that he may actually come down here and spot us for that big GW Panther. And there's that A20. I knew he had to be sneaking around here somewhere waiting on us to come back and defend the cap. Now I just want to keep moving. What I don't want is to take a shot from that GW Panther. There's Schwant put a hit into that AMX 13105. Really got to finish him off because he is spotting us for the other two artillery pieces. And there Schwant takes a big hit. But he does finish off the AMX. We're now at 5 kills. And at this point I'm telling Schwant, go man, move, move, move. If you can kill that SU-122, we can get brothers in arms out of this yet. See, there's the chat. Really concerned that either one of those artillery pieces could now splash Schwant and kill him. And God help us if we get hit by a Schutzwagen Panther, because that will probably obliterate us. I see the SU-122, I see the GW Panther, don't have a really good shot. I'm gonna keep moving. Aim time on this gun, like we talked about in the garage, is not the greatest. So I want to get as close as I can before I stop and take the shot so that I don't miss. You see I got spotted there, I suspect by the SU-122A. Again, just keep moving, trying to line up a good shot. Doesn't look like he's looking at me. Now he's looking at me. So we fire on the move, get a good hit, and fire on the move again, and get the kill. Unfortunately, Schwant gets obliterated by that Schutzwagen Panther, and we are not going to get brothers in arms. And now it's down to just me and that Panther. And what I'm wondering right now is, can I take a hit? I didn't stop to shoot that SU-122 because I was afraid, one, that he would shoot me, but more importantly that the Schutzwagen would hit me. And you see me here continuing to move because I know it's going to take more than one shot. And oh my god, my second shot misses, and he's hit me and tracked me. Oh, and we get the third shot off just in time and get the 5th kill. That was nerve-wracking at the end. I really thought that if that guy hit me, I'm instantly dead. Instead, it wasn't quite a direct hit. I think it was just a splash. And it damaged the fuel tank and blew off the tracks, but left us with 102 hit points, just enough to finish him off for the win. Let's take a look at the results screen. So that was my mastery badge in the KV-1. 43,396 credit earned, 1,834 experience. Was not a double, but it was with a premium account. If we look at the team score, in a tier 7 game in the KV-1, I managed to finish on top in damage done with 2,311 points of damage. 5 kills, 1,223 base experience. Perhaps even worse, the second highest player on the team was the T-49, a tier 5 tank destroyer with 1,438 points of damage and 2 kills. It's not until you get down to third place that finally the E-25 shows up with 854 points of damage. Here's the Tiger way down here. Here's the Panther at 585. Look at the T-25, 310 points of damage. So yeah, thanks to some of our tier 7 drivers who made that a lot harder than it needed to be. Fortunately, the opposing team's tier 7 drivers didn't really do themselves a whole lot of favors either. 1,017 points of damage for a T-25/2 in that kind of game. It's pretty unimpressive. Not really bad T-34-1, 1,510, but kind of a really weird game. Looking at the detailed report, fired 24 shots, got 20 hits, including those 2 on the move on that SU-122. Is pretty impressive. Got 17 penetrations for our 2,311 points of damage. Took 3 hits, 2 penetrations, 1 bounce. One of those was a hit for no damage, track shot, and then of course the monstrous hit we took from the Geschützwagen Panther at the end. Total potential damage received 1,660 points of damage. Damaged 7 enemy tanks and destroyed 5. 1 off from Top Gun, but I'm just surprised we won that game, let alone wasn't looking at Top Gun at all. Managed to pull in 29,763 credits with a premium account. So all in all, not a bad game. And with that, folks, I'm going to wrap up this review of the KV-1. I hope this has helped you to see that the KV-1 is really, statistically speaking, kind of a middle of the pack tier 5 heavy when you compare it to the other tier 5 heavies, but it's that middle of the pack quality and the fact that it has excellent all-around armor that makes it, I think, actually the strongest of the tier 5 heavies, because even though it's middle of the road, it doesn't have a glaring weak point unless it's maybe its poor hull and turret traverse, which of course you can offset to some degree with your driver skills and your crew skills. But as long as you plan out where you're going, you angle the tank, and you don't allow the enemy to take advantage of those weaknesses, I really think that all things considered, the KV-1 is the most dominant tier 5 machine in the game. So hope you enjoyed the videos. Hope you learned a few things, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.